All right, hey everybody. So what we're going to now look at is how do we use some of the Python SDKs for Microsoft Azure to connect and upload some data or view some data that might be contained within this blob storage that we've created. So in the last video, we saw how to create the container, maybe create like a folder and then manually upload a file like your blood pressure. So what we're going to now go through, and I quickly created some example code in a notebook that I'll share with you all. So this will be linked in the bottom of the video, is how and what packages do we install, and then how do we actually sort of use them. So to sort of walk through this first very quickly, again, I've provided the hyperlinks to the different resources that I looked at within Azure. So the sort of first one is like, what packages do we need to install, which is Azure Storage Blob. We don't actually even really need this Azure Identity one. That's if we are connecting and securing our connection in a slightly different way. But really the only one that we need is this Azure Storage Blob. So at the very top here, I've just included both of them, and then also python.env, because we are going to use, and again, kind of follow best practices here of creating an environment file and then storing our secret key in that file to then connect. So then we're not actually hard coding in any secrets here, like I've told you guys. So this first part here, just kind of copied and pasted with the one addition of adding in .env, because we are going to use and create a .env file that is going to contain this Azure Storage Access Key, which then gives the code permission to do stuff. And then we've also copied and pasted in the URL for our account. So if we go back here to the data storage, or to this just Hans test account storage container, and you guys might have called it something else, right? But if we go here under data management, and we are going to look, or sorry, it's not data management, we're going to go to security and networking, and we are going to look at access keys. So this is going to be where we are going to look at or generate an access key that will then be able to use to connect to this remote resource. So here, and I'll rotate these keys afterwards, but if I were to look at this connection string and show, or actually it's not the connection string there that I care about, but actually from this connection string, we could also see this is going to be the name. Again, all of these names are unique, right? And the rest of it, just to quickly jump back over, right? The way that Azure has things is it's always going to be HTTPS followed by the name that you created, followed by .blob.core.windows.net. So the only thing here that you just need to copy and paste over, right, is whatever this name is. So again, mine's is Hans test account storage. Not super creative there, but it works. And we also see it here, storage account name. So you just copy that and paste it. And then the other thing here is the key. So I'm just going to copy this over. And like I said, we are going to actually create, looks like we need to maybe first connect to a runtime. So let's reconnect to a runtime. And once we have this here, I'm going to say new file. I'm just going to call this test for right now. And if I were to open up this test file, I am going to then paste in that key. And here we're going to give it a key value, or the name of the key, so it could connect is Azure Storage Access Key equals, just paste it in the key. You might be asking, why did I just call this test? Is if we were to start off with creating a new file called .env, the way that Google Colab is set up is that .env files are hidden by default. And we can't quickly just connect to a terminal and then do nano .env and open up and edit it within the terminal without this premium pro access. So I'm showing you guys here kind of like a quick little shortcut. So once we've created this test file, which has the name of our key followed by the value of the key, which is our access token, we're then going to rename this from test. So we're going to rename and then we're going to call it .env. And you see when I did that, it disappeared. Doesn't mean that it's gone. And I'll sort of show you guys in just a second. So let's now do this pip install. So we're doing Azure Storage Blob, Azure Identity, and then python.env for being able to connect to our env. Looks like that's now done. And then we will run this next line of code. Cool. Load.env says true. So that means that it's found a .env file. And what I've done here is I'm just going to print this env file here quickly for us. So you could see that it is finding it. So this first line here, right, it's just creating a new variable of a string of what is our URL. Then the second one, and you could see that I'm doing the same thing here, but then sharing it as a shared access key. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. So we could actually cut that out if we wanted to, but I'm just showing you guys here, and it's just like kind of a quick confirmation that yes, the .env program is able to, even though we don't see it here, right on the left-hand side, there is a hidden .env file, and it is correctly finding it. Okay, so now this next part here, get blob service client account key, I just copied and pasted it. Again, the Microsoft documentation here gives us some examples of Python code for here. There's 3 different ways of accessing Microsoft Entra ID, a SaaS token, or a account key. I just decided account key. Probably the most secure one, again, Microsoft recommends it, is this Microsoft Entra ID, but we did not, I believe, enable that by default, or maybe we did. But regardless, the account key is going to work. It's also probably the most riskiest way of doing this, just because the account key potentially then also has access to all of the other containers or folders within this blob storage environment. So if someone gets hold of the key, potentially bad news. So but once we're done here, right, you could actually rotate the key. So once I rotate it, it's going to then sort of nullify this key, and it will no longer be accessible or usable. So anyway, this get blob service account key, copied and pasted it over. But again, pretty straightforward here. So let's now run this. And then we're going to save the output of this blob service client. That's the general kind of variable name that Microsoft recommends to then store this connection. So we're just going to keep on using that. So then we will run this. Cool. And then now the next function that I got here was a function to list containers. So in this documentation here, right, I was looking at, what can we do with this? So here they have a very simple, if we scroll down a little bit, code examples of listing containers. So again, just kind of copied and pasted it. And it takes in one input of a blob service client. It uses that to connect. And then what it will then do is print all of the different containers within this account. So if we now run this, right, I got to run that first, top to bottom. And then we run this. There's our test data. Now let's just kind of confirm that this is working properly, right? If we were to go back here to data storage, containers, let's create a new container. Let's call this, since I'm recording a video right now, video recording. Great. So now we have a new container or folder. So let's now go back to our code. And let's now rerun this. Now there's 2. Cool. Let's now delete this. Delete. Delete. Confirm, delete. A lot of double checking and rerun. Now we're back to 1. So now the next one that I was looking at is a function to upload blobs or any type of data file. So I've again linked the URL that you guys can check out, and they have a whole bunch of more advanced things. The one that I copied here was upload a blob from a local file. You also have upload a blob from a stream, so like streaming services, upload binary data, upload a block blob with index tags, upload a block blob with configuration options. So always start off simple with anything, right? So here's just upload something from a local file path. So just any type of object. So again, this is just a function. It has 4 different parameters. We provide our connection key. We provide the name of the container. We provide the file path of where something might live. And then we provide the name of the file. So that's how this function works. So when we then look down here, and this was from sort of me just playing around with it. So we have our connection key. We then have a name of a container, and that container is test data. So when we go in here, right, I have a container called test data. And if we were to log in or move to here right now, there's only one thing called blood pressure. So we have a container name, test-data. Again, you guys, it might be something different. Now the next 2 arguments is then sort of our local file path and like a name of a file. So let's create something. So here, left-hand side, let's right-click, new file, and let's call this, we'll just create a basic text file, right? I'll call this hansdata.txt. And I'm gonna double-click it, and I'm just gonna put in some fake data. This is Hans's example of how to push some information from a Google Colab notebook to a secured Azure Blob container. So this period / right, that just means our root directory here. And then we'll change this test to Hans-data. We could then still leave the same extension, and that's it. So now if we were to run this, let's see. Oh, I forgot to, again, run the function above us, right? Name upload blob file not defined. That's because we didn't run this. So now let's run this. Cool, no error message. So now let's go back to Azure and let's go into test data, and voila, right? Hansdata.txt. I don't think we get a preview or anything, but we could then, download this, open it up, right? And there's the data that we put in. Awesome. Now, the final 2 things here that I had, because then I was also curious, like, all right, well then how do we list out all of the, say, files that might exist within a blob? So another URL, another kind of quick little example code that they've provided, scroll down, use a flat listing, they give us code, and then sample output might look like this. Great. So copied and pasted that, just keeping mostly everything the same there. So then we provide our connection variable and then also the name of the container that we want to search for. So then if we were to run that function to save it in memory, and then now we run this list blobs flat, right? There's our files. And the other neat thing that it looks like is that this will then loop through nested folders within the container. So what that means is if we were to go back here, let's say we were to create, can we create a new, looks like it might be a little bit more tricky to create a new subfolder within here. But anyway, that's then how we could then also programmatically, if we were to, like, again, if I were to not be happy with this, I want to delete it, also delete snapshot, and then we rerun this, it's now gone, right? Let's add it back. Let's now re-hit it, and now it's back. So all very quick and nifty. And that's it for this video.